This is the Sri Ramana Maharshi satsang, a time to listen, reflect, and deeply meditate. Know yourself and be always free and at peace. Welcome. I'm Richard Clarke, hosting the satsang. I'm not a teacher or a guru, just someone who loves this teaching and wants to share it with like-minded people. I'm reviewing and commenting on the book Talks with Sri Ramana Maharshi. Today is talk 76. Let me get it up on the screen. The questioner asks, without the mind concentrating on the work, without the mind concentrating on it, the work cannot be performed satisfactorily. How is the mind to be spiritually disposed and the work kept going on as well? And Ramana says the mind is only a projection from the self, appearing in the waking state. In deep sleep, you do not say whose son you are, and so on. As soon as you wake up, you say, you are so and so, and recognize the world, and so on. The world is only loka. What is perceived is the world. That which is seen is loka, or the world. Which is the eye that sees it? That is the ego, which rises and sinks periodically. But you exist always. Therefore, that which lies beyond the ego is consciousness, the self. In deep sleep, mind is merged and not destroyed. That which merges reappears. This may happen in meditation also, but the mind which is destroyed cannot reappear. The yogi's aim must be to destroy it and not to sink into laya, absorption. In the peace of dhyana, meditation, laya ensues, but it's not enough. It must be supplemented by other practices for destroying the mind. Some people have gone into samadhi with a trifling thought, and after a long time awakened in the trail of the same thought. In the meantime, generations have passed away in the world. Such a yogi has not destroyed his mind. Its destruction is the non-recognition of it as being apart from the self. Even now, the mind is not. Recognize it. How can you do it if not in everyday activities? They go on automatically. Knowing that the mind promoting them is not real, but a phantom proceeding from the self. That is how the mind is destroyed. So the questioner asks something that many of us wonder about. How do you combine your spiritual journey with your daily life? He asks, without the mind concentrating on it, work cannot be performed satisfactorily. How is the mind to be spiritually disposed and the work kept going as well. To which Ramana responds, the mind is only a projection from the self, appearing in the waking state. Ramana responds by challenging the basic assumption inherent in the question that the mind asking the question is a separate entity, something different from the self. What is the mind? Does the mind have an independent existence on its own? Ramana tells us the mind is only a projection from the self. The self is the knowing consciousness that you are, vast and unlimited. The mind is only a partial reflection of this consciousness. This partial reflection is then projected onto the waking state. Most people think that this projection is who they are. This consciousness that you are is also reflected in dreams, with a dream character that may be similar to the waker. This seeming reality of the dream only lasts so long as the dream continues. In the waking state, we say it was only a dream. In deep sleep, the mind is dormant and no projection is made. Then Ramana says, in deep sleep, you do not say whose son you are and so on. As soon as you wake up, you say you are so and recognize the world and so on. In fact, in deep sleep, you don't know anything about the waking state or the dream state. You just are. You still exist, even though the mind does not know about it. When you awaken, the waking state and the world rise with the waker. Ramana also says the world is only loka. What is perceived is the world. Which is the I, EYE, that sees it? That is the ego, which rises and sinks periodically. The world is only our perception of it. What else do we know of it? The perception starts with a sense, like the eyes perceiving an object. Then the mind translates this to what some have called like a holographic image within the mind. The intellect then perceives this image as if it were the world. But without the light of consciousness, the mind knows nothing. What is essential in the process is not the world, the sensing, or the mental translation of the image. Rather, it is the knowing capacity that infuses all these with awareness. Ramana goes on to say, but you exist always. Therefore, that which lies beyond the ego is consciousness, the self. What is seen in the waking state is loka. But just who is the seer of the world? Is it the I? Is it the mind? Is it the ego? The ego comes and goes, but you exist always. That which lies beyond the ego is consciousness, the self. Inquire, what is always. It is always, so you can find it right now. Inquire, who knows? And you'll be pointed right at that which is always. Ramana continues, in deep sleep, mind is merged and not destroyed. That which merges reappears. It may happen in meditation also, but the mind which is destroyed cannot reappear. Ramana lays out something fundamental in his teaching, that what is sought is not another temporary state, another thing that comes and goes. Rather, what is sought is what is always there, which neither comes nor goes. To find this means that your identity as a mind must be completely eliminated, destroyed. Then what is always will stand on its own, unobscured. Ramana continues, the yogi's aim must be to destroy it and not sink in Laya. In the peace of dhyana, Laya ensues, but it's not enough. It must be supplemented by other practices for destroying the mind. What we seek is happiness that is always, that does not come and go. Any mental states we find in meditation, even the very best, continue only so long as the meditation continues. Meditation can bring Laya, the peace of absorption, but this is temporary. To destroy the mind, other practices are needed. Ramana elsewhere instructs, hold to the self. Ramana continues saying, even now the mind is not. Recognize it. How can you do it if not in everyday activities? They go on automatically. Ramana returns to what he first said about the unreality of the mind. Even now, the mind is not. Recognize it. As long as we believe the mind provides us with reality, we are stuck. We can't get past the mind since we have set it up as the arbitrator of reality. We must find out for ourselves that mind is illusion, just a partial reflection of the consciousness that we are. We must find this out and recognize it as reality, as what is true. Ramana says, how do you do it if not in everyday activities? They go on automatically. We carry the illusion of our identity as the body and mind in the waking state. This is what we think is real. This is why we have to do our spiritual practice, our meditation and inquiry when we are waking. We have this idea in the waking state. We must dispel it too in the waking state. When we do this, we make another discovery that everyday activities still go on, even if we don't think we're doing them. If we are not a body, then how can we do anything? Ramana concludes, know that the mind promoting them is not real, but a phantom proceeding from the self. This is how the mind is destroyed. The mind that thinks it is the agent doing all these things was never real to begin with. It is an upadi, a superimposition on the self. What is always real is the self, always knowing, always untouched by what it knows. By knowing the unreality of the mind is how you destroy it. But you have to really know at the same depth as you know that you exist. You must know the mind was never real, that it never really existed to begin with. It was just an imagined superimposition. Consciousness is what is real. It is always real, without any alternative. What is real always within you? And now we'll listen to my teacher Nome with a dialogue on the nature of the mind.
My inquiry and practice for the last period, I've had much interest in understanding the nature of the mind. Perhaps that is encouraged by the reading that I've been doing in Yoga Vasishta and Shankara's quintessence of the teachings. From a deep point of view, I know what is required for to understand the unreality of the mind. Certainly, with that knowledge, then everything else becomes simple. Still, in trying to understand this in Yoga Vasishta and quintessence of the teaching, they talk about the mind, and I think Yoga Vasishta talks about impure mind, pure mind. In quintessence, I read about conditioned mind, unconditioned mind. I think they're still speaking of the same thing, just with different language. Somehow this seems to be an important step in the, for the seeker to take kind of on the way to no mind, if you will. And wanted to ask you about this and how to best use this kind of view of the mind in practice.
When the mind seems to be conditioned, by what is it conditioned? It cannot be by external circumstances, other people, things, events, etc., because all those exist only within the mind. Within one state of mind, the waking state.
So the conditioning really is just another thought.
Yes, And what is spoken of as a mind with conditions is a mind that is put on limitations. The limitations are the forms that are imagined within it. There is not some other factor conditioning it. It is conditioning itself. It is limiting itself. A mind that believes, that it attributes reality to what it is imagined only within itself, is an outward-going mind. Within that context falls all duality. Within that occurs misidentification, attachment, and the rest of what is only a cause of bondage and futility in life. An inward-turned mind is one that is dissolving that attribution of validity to what is merely imagined. So within an inward-turned mind, the sense of identity, the sense of reality, and of course, happiness, are all being returned to their origin, to the rightful place, where they actually always are. Sri Bhagavan said the mind is only a bundle of thoughts. If you would cease to believe in the reality of your own thoughts, what would be left of your mind?
As you talked here, you had talked, it seems like several times this year, probably also before that, and I was not hearing what you said, but you've talked about how do you know what is real. And it seems like what you have said here is just approaching that from a different angle. When I have, as I've meditated and inquired on how I know what is real, this is one of the things that has brought my focus to the mind, into the waking state mind, and I've seen in that inquiry and investigation that, what ordinarily I take to be real is the product of this waking state mind and nothing else. Except there still is reality beyond that doesn't include it somehow.
There is reality beyond whatever is conceived in the mind, and of course whatever is perceived by the senses. The vividness of that reality, one infinitesimal portion of that, is borrowed, as it were, to give what people refer to as their present experience, mental or physical, the quality of being real. The experiences keep changing. The quality of being real remains.
Always.
This tells us something. It tells us that the reality itself does not belong to the forms of any of those experiences. A thing cannot be real at one time and unreal at another. Reality will not change its nature, and the unreal will not change its nature. The unreal will not become real, and the real will not become unreal. The experiences, gross and subtle, sensed and mental, keep changing. They cannot be real at one time and unreal at another. If they're unreal at the beginning, unreal at the end, they are unreal even in the middle. What then is real all the time? The unreal is being, through imagination, merely superimposed on the reality. But the unreal has no actual substance. The reality is shining all the time. What you use to determine what is real very much goes into the make of what you consider to be. If, for example, someone takes the senses to be the determinants of reality, they will consider the world of phenomenal things and the body the reality and their identity. Of course, if a person recognizes that the senses are not very accurate in showing reality, in fact, they don't show reality at all, then they will proceed to use something deeper or more interior to determine what is real, what exists. If thinking, the mind, is used as the measurement tool for reality, thoughts themselves will be regarded as real, with the present thought seeming to be the most vivid. This is no different than what happened with the senses, but it's more subtle. It's equally objective, equally unreal. How do you know thought is? When you have the idea, thought is, upon what is that idea based? If within the mind you have the thought, the mind is, upon what basis does that thought stand? Everything you know about the mind, including the very notion that it exists, depends on something that knows all the time, with or without thought. That which is the ultimate knower bears none of the attributes of the known. That absolute knower is pure consciousness. Pure consciousness plus the notion thought as being existent comes out as the idea of I know it and a mind. Trace that mind to its source. Seek out its essence. See what is there.
Seems like that then is the pure mind, which is no mind at all.
So Vedantic scriptures declare that the mind of the jnani is Brahman. It doesn't mean that there's an individual called jnani, and he has this thing called the mind, and his mind is of a special type called Brahman. It does not mean that. The jnani, the mind, Brahman, are all identical.
One thing that has really helped, and it is a great aid now still, is reflecting on the reality of dreams and just comparing and contrasting that. But again, it's very clear that in the dreams, the sense of reality and existence are just the same as they are in the waking state. And again, this is a point now where I have no doubt. And that has to make me ask more questions about the reality in the waking state and what is really real.
If you go on inquiring like that, you will find the reality or pure existence, which is not a product of any mental state, waking, dreaming, not even dreamless sleep.
And now we'll take a few minutes for a little inquiry. Get comfortable in your seat. Quiet yourself. Feel your breathing. Take a long breath in and exhale. Notice that you exist and you know that you exist. Now inquire, investigate within yourself. How do you know the world that the mind perceives? Who is the knower? Who knows the mind? In your experiences, in your meditation, what comes and goes? What is just temporary? What is just an appearance? What within you is always? What is always present? Who am I? What is the nature of my existence? What actually exists? What real existence does something that is just an appearance have? What is always real. All right. And we'll close with a chant. Om. Shanti, Shanti, Shanti. Om. Peace, peace, peace. All right. Any questions or discussion?
That was wonderful, and I got a lot out of it.
Well, very good. So did I. Well, again, maybe I shouldn't say that, but one of the reasons I do this stuff is to really look at what Ramana said real closely. And the way I know to look at it the most closely is to try to do what we're doing here and talk about it.
Mm-hmm.
And what I find when I'm preparing for this, when I read Ramana's words, I have to read them actually a number of times before I start to feel like I might know what he was talking about.
Yeah, he is pretty concise.
Yes, yes. And that's one thing that one trouble that people have is he does not give long-winded explanations.
Yeah.
And so still the question is what is real?
Mm-hmm.
And what is real, I must be what is real.
Mm-hmm.
And that means that somehow within me, I must be able to find what is real. Because it's not something different than I am. You know, to me, that is the most powerful part of Ramana's teaching, that what I am looking for is not only within me, but it turns out to be what I already am. It's funny to have this mystery looking for what I have been all along. Why is it so hard? Anyway, at UU Sunday, I will talk about this non-duality in the most direct way I have ever talked, and I'll use the Mandukya Upanishad as a vehicle for that talk. And I think what is wonderful about the Mandukya Upanishad is it starts with experiences that everybody has every day. You know, not with some mystic reveal story from on high, but stuff that all of us experience. And it just teaches us to look at it more closely, and particularly to see, you know, we all know the waking state and the dream state and the deep sleep state, but there is something that is always within all of those. What is that? Have you ever looked?
Could never find it because you are that.
Right,
It's not
right.
an object.
Right.
Yeah.
Exactly.
I wish I could be at UU.
Well, I'll send you the Zoom link,
Okay.
and you'll have to figure out what time 9:30 HEIC time is locally. I think it may be your own zone. What time is it now, Richard?
Here we're in, it's 3:49 here, so we're an hour earlier.
Okay, right. So it's like it's 4:49 here. So that'll give you a hint. You're muted, Carol.
I was trying to say it's not 9:30 our time, it's 10:30
10:30, didn't I
our
say?
time. You
Yeah,
said
10:30.
9:30.
Well, I'm stupid.
All right.
Okay.
You're on another plane, right?
Well, anyway,
Good, yeah, that's great that you can see it.
and so, the reason I've thought to take this approach is to try to present this teaching as something that starts to be accessible with everybody's experience, not with something that you have to believe in.
Mhm.
So we will see. That's my latest attempt to try to bring non-duality to the Unitarians.
The noble task.
That's
I
right.
look forward to getting the link.
Yes, I'll send the link out. And anyway, it was good to be with you all today. And I appreciate so much our being together.
Mhm.
So namaste.
Thank you so much.
Okay.
It was
Namaste.
Namaste.
Namaste.